Good morning, everybody. It's a Saturday. It's so quiet and it's wonderful, isn't it? And I guess I'm doing like a request video today that I've been avoiding doing, because it's about Harvey Weinstein, and it's just hard to sort of go there. I just feel Hollywood is so. Um, right now I think it's just coming out more and more really what Hollywood is, and I've just not been part of it. I just don't even go to movies. I don't. Oh my goodness. Oh, don't tell me. I think one of our chickens is a rooster. When they sold them, they promised us that they were all chickens at the store, but that one is not looking nor acting very chicken like. We've got a rooster, you guys. What are we gonna do? Help. Oh my goodness me. Oh my goodness me. Hey Gabriel. That was what my daughter changed this little one's name to after realizing Myrtle's the one in white and Lorelei is the one in the back. Oh my goodness me. Wow, we've got trouble, everybody. We've got trouble, not just Harvey. Okay. What are we going to do about Harvey? I guess, the first thing, of course, that always comes to mind with these bandwagon things, and it's funny because Harvey always talks about he's with the underdog, and I know it's odd to think of a Hollywood mogul as being an underdog, just because he's arrested and, he did behave abominably. But in a way, he was sort of fulfilling this weird role of Hollywood, and it's interesting because most of the people who were there kind of got there by way of doing what it was they all complained about anyway. So, Hollywood is the vice magnet, right? If you want to be bad, if you want to be full of vice, it was like that in New York. Although, as I have said in previous videos, that the truest, most sick, most perverse everything was really, coming out of the United Nations, and we'll be seeing that more and more. I remember the first inklings of it, I think, were through Dynacore, and I remember it stood out. Dynacore was a contractor for them, and they used to be a client, and we would call them Dying Corpse, and that really is truer than I had realized. But, this is the Hollywood that, praises Roman Polanski. So as soon as you get to that, right, that these women, as despicable as he was, they were of age and they were in the quote unquote bad place. I don't know. I know I can understand the trauma though. I think somewhat. So I don't just want to totally dismiss that there's trauma involved when people go through things, and maybe some of these people were vulnerable, maybe some were weak, maybe some really didn't know. That's hard to imagine because I don't know, I'm a female and I was 18 once or whatever, and just I've mentioned this before, if I knew then back in 1978, pre-internet and everything, I think people knew in the 20s what Hollywood was. Everybody knows. So we'll start with that premise that the silliness of the liberal mind, it's like they're like little kids that don't know where to put their stuff. I remember moving in with this nutty guy in New York. He was like a businessman, but he couldn't keep house, and he ran out of shelves, and he was like storing his books in the oven and ordering Chinese. It was just silly. And they want to sort of take vice out of Viceland. They want to take vice out of Viceland, and they want to put it in the schools. They're going to complain like they're little, what we call the new church ladies, about Harvey, who was going after women of age in motel rooms. I mean, come on. You can't sort of get more just, come on, really. And, but they're singing the praises of Roman Polanski, who went after somebody underage. So once again, what I feel, and I went through this in the 80s where everyone's sex awareness, blah, blah, like it had never happened before, like it had never occurred to anyone. And I even have had, people that I no longer associate with, but say, well, now we have awareness of these things. And, I feel it's just part of a greater mind control that we're under, of repetition, where, suddenly, something is like this big deal and we're all part of it and everything. And it's something that's utterly nothing. That's completely contrived. It's so contrived, and for some reason he got picked, or it happened, but then something contrived around it happened with these giant non-event events that are, really take away the dignity of one's own life. It's like I always feel part of my soul is sucked to even, jump into the fray at all with these things. But it's funny, I'm sure that the people who are talking about this whole empowerment issue are also the same ones who want, drag queens and transsexuals and sodomy taught in the elementary school. I know because my daughter went to one of those. So they're not going to allow Vice in Viceland, but they're going to force basically worse than Harvey Weinstein behavior on your children. So there's this confusion of things. I mean, if something bad happens and it's Harvey Weinstein and you were in a hotel in LA, well, you could have avoided that one. You really could have. But when you're a little child and you're having people, I've just seen horrible footage on YouTube of parents that have gone undercover and filmed in classrooms where, there are these just disgusting social justice warriors teaching oral sex to kindergartners. I kid you not. Putting condoms on bananas. And it's so filthy. It's so completely filthy. And, they did it in Times Square. It was funny. I remember they cleaned up Times Square, and Penn from Penn and Teller, and I'm not like a big fan of theirs, but he said, why take away Vice from where Vice is? Now it's going to be all like amorphous and weird. And then I realized they want to put it in the classroom. There's this control. And also there's this push me, pull you, like the llama, which is a very sort of kind of giant, maybe, Theodore Adorno, once again, I love to bring up his name, of the consciousness of this, this is happening, but this is happening. It just keeps people, once again, dumbed down, completely dumbed down, and tries to control behaviors in the workplace and things like this as well. And it's a non-issue being made into an issue. It's funny, I had like these Agenda 21 people come by my place a few years ago, and they were really talking about, saving water and, you've got to do this, you've got to use these light bulbs and stuff. And I'm thinking, lady, if you're so worried about all this, then why are you bringing in, 2 trillion immigrants a day from every third world country you can possibly imagine? Right? I've got a friend who's like very from San Francisco. He's been annoyed with me for so long about, he thinks, just let him in or whatever. And even he has had it now. Even he has had it. It's interesting when the practical kind of starts to outweigh, and, yeah, so that was interesting. Yeah, so, right. Harvey Weinstein has to behave in the bedroom, and everyone's going to run him through a shaming thing while we hear nothing about the actual pedophiles there who are hurting actual little children. And we are hearing, defenses of things like Roman Polanski, where Whoopi Goldberg said it's not rape, and here we've got a 10-year-old who was drugged, sodomized, just the worst things imaginable, and him getting off the hook. So it kind of keeps one's mind, in this kind of little place because it's all so obvious. And, that there are so many arguments right now that are also obvious. If people are illegal, throw them out. If people are fighting it, they're traitors. There is a certain amount of black and white to things. A little bit more, a little bit less of Fabian-ishy in these areas, in these realms. So it's weird. It's almost like it's taking away just the sacredness of place and the containment of things. I think I loved living in New York, and if you wanted to be bad, you went here. If you wanted to be good, you went there. You sort of knew what was. In a classroom, the children are going to be taught X, and now it's so weird, and they also, it's interesting, they just also made illegal in Great Britain, I see, just kind of more and more things. One is the Car 5 girls, and I found that interesting. Not that I'm super into that culture or anything, but it's just wild that it's sort of like the jealous are taking over, right? These women are attractive. I kind of went, wow. We had this, I worked at the co-op. I volunteered a long time ago, and I stocked things, and there was some brand of, like tofu jerky or something, and they had like these different labels, and there was one that said, it's hot, and it kind of had like a picture of like a hot woman or something. It was only her face, okay? It was only her face, but she had, kind of like this, she was pretty, and they ended up pulling it from the co-op because they said that they were offended, right, by this like pretty woman on the tofu jerky thing. And yet they kept other products that, they had like these kind of gay, or what we would call pansexual magazines. When I first started volunteering at the co-op, the magazines were Covert Action Quarterly. And if you've ever not read that, that's a really good one to find. Covert Action Quarterly, that was this like really hardcore magazine about just covert actions all over the world. It was pre-internet, and if you were really, really hip in New York, you definitely were reading Covert Action Quarterly. And another really cool one was Multinational Monitor, which was wholly negative and had no advertisements or anything. Oh my God. And it was another really great one. And it was started, I think, by Ralph Nader as kind of a consumer issue. But you could see, what nuclear power plants were being built in Indonesia on, just really thin, construction. You could just find out hardcore stuff you just never see anywhere else. But then they brought in like a magazine called Hebe about like being like modern and Jewish, and that one, I don't know, that might have been okay. That one seemed like kind of funny. But then they brought in like these other ones that were like really pushing the envelope, like that were basically just porn. And there were moms that were complaining because these magazines were like right there on on the shelf like while you were waiting. And that was, there was kind of a scandal that occurred because these really little kids had come across this pornography, and the co-op ended up defending the pornographers and telling, the moms that they were just, uptight and ridiculous people. But I was really on the side of the moms. I felt like, it was just interesting. What I had noticed over the years was that people here, the population was becoming just less interested in the outside world, in the other, like in things like multinational monitor, what is your environment around you, and had been turned inward into this, I'm just going to sit around and wonder, am I straight, am I gay, am I this, am I that, instead of just realizing kind of we're people and that we have this environment around us. It reminded me, I think, of the French. They said that the French used to think more expansively, and after being through wars, everything became very small. It's all just about the right scarf, right? Or the right glass of wine at this point, as opposed to, what am I going to do with the cows on my farm? That everything becomes like that. I remember the first time I saw that, I'd been away for a while, and I came back and I walked into this place I normally wouldn't go in, and I saw some people there that normally wouldn't be there. Downtown used to be pretty limited, so I don't even drink, but I walked into this bar, the Fourth Ave Tap. It was really hot, and there was a guy sitting there, and he was just drawing, and he didn't even look like he belonged there either. And I liked his drawings. They were really good, but it was also weird to see this kind of, he never talked about the world, the earth. There were no more actions or people who took actions. People are sort of talking about the demise of Evergreen, and it started on a bad note, sadly. I mean, it might be in this pretty place in the woods, and the students are fun, and they have good art class, whatever, if you don't know the insidious beginnings of it. But I'm almost wondering if they're letting it implode because the project is over. The MK Ultra project is basically over. They dumbed down the population. They brought out the people here. It was a magnet school, as in it was a magnet for hippies back in the 60s. Anyone considered a threat, they were going to advertise for them, right? It's like pedophiles work, I'm sorry, what people with shoe fetishes work at the shoe store, right? They just arrested another pedophile. What was he doing? He was a puppet show guy at a Christian center, like in Florida or something. So, they made Evergreen, they called it Evergreen, they put it in a pretty place to attract a certain type of people. And that type of people basically doesn't exist anymore. They basically snuff them out. Now we have a new population that's LGBT. That's only caring about themselves. See, it's not that kind of higher, expansive mindset that's going to be able to care about the earth and care about the trees. And so we have logging trucks going through here day in and day out, and no protests. I didn't even know there had been protests there until a friend of mine died, and I was going through his things, and there were very old daily Olympians with pictures of people who were very smart, very articulate. And so, the dumbing down is absolutely, completely real. And you can even see it if you look at old footage of places. I feel like I should put that in the link. I saw old footage of Detroit that used to be known as the Paris of the West. And I know everyone can laugh about that now, but when you see it, you just want to cry. And weirdly, I watched some hearings about Scientology recently. They were hearings in Clearwater, Florida. Nothing came of it, but You know, people wanted to go to the city council about it. And everyone was so articulate. The people on the city council were articulate. You know, even the people who were sort of just emptying trash in the back looked, you know, smarter than what you see today. It was just weird to watch it, and it was a whole different population. A whole different population. The people were more slender, they were more in shape, and these were, you know, it wasn't like it was about Scientologists. These were just the people living in this town. Some were, some weren't. But it was just like, wow, what on earth has happened? So Evergreen, basically at this point, you know, they can just let it implode. It really doesn't matter. They can let the left eat itself, right? And like with the Harvey thing, they can just let these implosions happen now and sort of keep us in this dumbed down loop. You know, it's awful. I want to be thinking about, I don't know, anything else, right? Our own minds, our own lives, and the world of nature around us, and the world of intelligence around us. And it's almost like, I don't know if people know what psychic driving is, but it's where they put like a loop on a tape, and it's really considered to be a major hell realm. And, you know, that is what I think of with the whole Harvey Weinstein Hollywood. Once again, you know, it's this hell realm of having to think about something that ultimately doesn't even have to do with us or affect us or anything. You know, it's like it's too trite to even talk about at the coffee fountain. And, you know, the people that are just sort of talking about this, these talk show hosts and things, it's like they have no shame. They're shameless. And maybe I'm bitter. I don't know. That it should have been a time of intelligence being celebrated instead of banality being given the time of day. You know, and so the chickens move on, and you guys, we've got a rooster on our hands. What are we going to do? Help. All right. Do you think maybe no one will notice? Could that happen? Anyway, take care, everybody. Much love. Bye.